Greetings, Summoners. Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Battle Spirits Saga video. And today we're going to take the first look at the early meta reports. And this also wants to set up future videos that we're going to do that, you know, if you haven't followed this channel for a while or don't know me from other games, I was partnered with Mobalytics and I did all the weekly meta reports for that game. So in the future, and also I've talked with like Orange Samurai and how they do the One Piece card game, you know, Twitter recap and stuff. I want to do something very similar for Battle Spirits Saga when it launches, so you can look forward to this style of video overall going forward, but it will be a little bit more detailed. You know, this is the breakdown. I'll talk about that more in the future. So again, I want to give a huge shout out to Espira up front. All of this is due to their very, very hard work and what they're doing for the community. But that'll be more at the end. And again, I just want to kind of do like a recap of, hey, what can we expect for Vegas and what's going to be popular? So this is a combined effort, or, you know, just throwing colors together based on what the first 2 weeks looked like. So I want to be very clear. This is also putting things like Michaela, like the Luster deck, and Godbeast into the same category, which obviously we would never do going forward. But due to the very limited sample size of data that's available to us, I just wanted to talk about, hey, what color are people playing and what are the undefeated lists, right? Just to give a general idea of kind of maybe what to expect leading into the launch events, leading into Vegas. And obviously, once we have the data from those launch events, that will be way more informative kind of going forward. But up front, we have just the color breakdown. So Cursed Dragon for purple, very, I guess not surprising, at least to me, that it is the most popular color off the bat. It just does a lot. We've talked about this in a lot of videos, but good removal, good card draw, good spirits, just kind of has a little bit of everything. What was surprising, the elephant here representing white, there's a lot of white decks being played. And to be fair, I did merge kind of the, you know, oh, it's white and purple. It's also white core and then splashing a couple red cards, right? Those are generally all the same deck. Speaking very broadly here, it is a white control or white late game style of deck that just uses cards from other colors because you kind of have to, right? White is lacking a little bit in set one, at least what's available to us before the tournament pack or before EX01 in June. So a lot of opportunities for white to kind of get insane right around the corner. Coming in at third is going to be red, obviously featured by the poster child himself, Nova. This one did surprise me quite a bit because Nova is one of, if not the strongest, you know, catch-up card in the set one meta, but obviously it does have its own roadblocks or difficulties in terms of how you're closing out the games or how you interact with certain matchups where you really have to rely on your sideboard, and maybe not a lot of people have really refined their sideboarding yet, and that's why it's kind of less popular. The Absolute Ice Shield is just white rainbow, and this is a category I expect to like fall off completely, just to be blunt about it post Vegas, because right now everyone is trying to figure out, okay, well, we want to have white represented somewhere. And these are lists that are just very aggressively splashing all the colors. Like what does good stuff deck look like, comparing it to how other card games would approach it? And that's this like white rainbow or white splash 2 colors kind of amalgamation that's been thrown together. So I just kind of tallied those up and kind of threw them in their own category. And then breaking my heart, the least popular so far is yellow. And obviously, as I mentioned up front, this is going to be a combination of both Michaela and Godbeast coming together. And it's just not there. And truthfully, so yellow does struggle a lot against red, which I can understand. Maybe that's why people are scared to play it. But you actually have a pretty decent purple matchup, and I've been obviously testing this a lot because it's my list for Vegas, and I'm not going to shy away against some of these harder matchups. So, no, spoiler, Nova is still really rough matchup. Red is always going to be the counter for yellow until the end of time. That's just how it works. It's how Battle Spirits, from a high-level design standpoint, is created. So, you know, just take that L, right? You kind of have to. But purple, there's actually quite a few things you can do, both main deck and sideboard, that can shore up that matchup significantly and even swing it in your favor. So I really do like my list going into Vegas. If more people play red, I'm just going to get knocked out early, and it is what it is. But I think if a lot of people are on purple and white because of what I've tacked and because of where my sideboard is at, I'm feeling very good about where I'm sitting. So I do expect yellow to be more popular post-Vegas, and once people get the opportunity to test more, we have more refined lists, because I think a lot of what we're seeing right now, right, is the meta is just so widely undiscovered, right? It's not like One Piece, it's not like Digimon, where the meta is just solved for you more or less and handed to you on a silver platter, right? To me, one of the most exciting things about Battle Spirits Saga is figuring out where this meta is going to go. And just the next leveling that you get to do because you've been putting in the time, because you're rewarded for looking at these different deck lists and sideboarding options and then preparing those for a bigger event. So maybe the hottest take that I'm going to have this entire video, but I'm going to be super honest. After you see the list that's going to appear, after we talk about the few undefeateds, we tested it against a small pool, and I've been testing with another partner offline as well. And yeah, Elephant Control could win Vegas. Like, I know that's a hot take, trust me. But that card slaps, and there is definitely some things that have been overlooked in white that can help out certain matchups a lot of people have been struggling with. So, I originally said white was the fourth color in terms of ranking, and truthfully, I do still rank it there from an overall standpoint. But I think people will be surprised that there are actually some good lists coming out of white, and I think with a little bit more refinement, we're going to see a lot more white decks popping up and doing well in these style of events. So with that out of the way, again, just a high overview of what each color, is doing in terms of just how many people are playing each one of them. But in the future, these videos will be breaking down, again, going back to the Meta Monday comment, these videos will be broken down like, oh, this is a Cursed Dragon Depletion deck, right? Oh, this is a Maduke Cursed deck. Oh, this is a God Beast deck. Oh, this is a Michaela deck, right? These are all very different and deserve their own slice of the pie. But until we get to a point where more of the metagame is kind of understood and refined, it's very hard to put together a pie chart other than just like look at all these random things that people are putting together and trying to, put them into one slice best you can. So really looking forward to seeing what this looks like. I was going to say about a month from now, but it's only the 9th at the time of recording this. So probably a bit more than a month, like 2 months from now, because obviously the launch event is going to be a great starting point and give a lot of people hey, this is what I want to play when the game launches, but the game doesn't launch until another month after the launch events. So we have to wait for more people to go to like their store pre-release or store launch events, and then obviously the weekly tournaments that follow. So more to come on that, but very excited to see how much this is going to change in the near future. So let's get into these actual lists. Now, again, I am just looking at both I think this is week 2 I started with. I'm doing this backwards then, as it were, but the week 2 and week 1 undefeated list, and just kind of want to talk about the ones that were interesting at a high level. I did leave out one red list from the group of these, but that's strictly because it's a list that is more of a Nebula Dragon with some spicy tech versus this is where, the conversation should be about like overall meta deck list and kind of where to start. So up first, we have a purple deck, Anthony Blaze. This is during week 2. And spoiler, there's going to be a lot of stuff in here that you're going to see repeated across purple decks. Obviously, the Dark Bishop and Cursed Dragon combo to just board wipe your opponent, as I mentioned very early on. And a lot of people made fun of me for calling it good. It's a very strong combo, and it can break a lot of boards, and especially against white, where they have a lot of armor purple. You say, hey, look, these 2 cards technically don't target, so I don't care if Enterprise is giving your whole board armor purple, bye-bye, and it gets rid of it. Obviously, I got to give a shout-out to Dark King Snake Pendacles, because I think it is still something that you want like a 1 to a 2 of in your list, because you don't always want to have to hard commit to your combos, and he can still answer a card all by himself. Obviously, the one kind of like really big thing to take away from this list is the 1-drop. So a full suit of Camelot Knights and also 2 Demo Bones, which shout out, I love that little dude. Demo Bones has amazing, amazing artwork. But this is something that we don't see in a lot of purple decks currently, and it really is just to respect kind of the more low to the ground aggressive strategies where a lot of the purple decks will be starting off with their 3-drops, like obviously Beldegor, one of the strongest plays you can have on your going first on your second turn because your opponent attacks you on their turn 1. You play Beldegor, kill their unit, and it just keeps coming back. And then Algavale, one of the best 3-drops in the game, period, probably. Just looking at what's available in the other colors, but being able to have Curse so it can get through those late game damage that you need, being able to cycle itself, obviously being a shadow is relevant in some lists as well. It's just a very solid 3-drop that we see often used, and again, largely because of the cycling, but then also because it can take something else out with it, and everything else to follow is kind of more or less what you would expect. Now, what's interesting is the sideboarding options here, right? So we do see another Oaken Paddle for the Curse, which is really interesting. I'm assuming that's just more for the white matchup. We have another Maduke, which I have kind of mixed feelings about on which ways that can go. Obviously, it can be really good for just setting up a 6K wall because, right, you put 5 cores on it, it's a 6K wall, you block with it. If they're playing like a mid-range or late-game style of deck, it's going to untap, like everything kills 6k at that point. You drain them a life, and now suddenly you have another blocker. So it walls off your opponent from attacking until they have something like a Dream Bomb or other ways to just bounce it from the field. Because otherwise, right, you're playing yellow, you just go wide, and spoiler, everything is less than 6k, right? So there's a couple different ways that you can target Maduke in terms of where you want to interact with it. So it's definitely not an end-all be-all. And then Handmaiden Fula is just an anti-drain card, and this is something I'm sure that we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the future. It's a 3-drop. You can play it outside of white, and it's just very good. It helps protect your key threats. So if you're trying to protect like a Cursed Dragon, you put the Soul Core on it, and then it can't be drained. So very solid tech card. I'm expecting to see a lot of this in the Vegas and other launch event lists. Kind of not too surprising there. And then the other one, Otter Gundam from the purple list. Now this one is going to be, again, very, very similar to the one that we just showed. But spoiler, if you might have seen some of this before, obviously with the core drain, the Mamimura, it looks pretty familiar. But obviously it's purple. It's just a lot of this is going to be repeat. Purple Smoke Valley and core drain's kind of like an obvious combo. Mamimura doing a lot of heavy lifting for obviously just being another card off Dark Bishop or some of the other cards that are stripped down to 1. And then what's really interesting too, if we go back to the list, is having 0 copies of Dragonaga Assassin, which is another, like, in my opinion, just must play 3-drop for purple because it's very good, right? It's very easy to cycle cards off of it. It's a 4K with Curse. It's going to kill something with it. But again, I really just think this goes back to one of the things I've mentioned in a lot of videos now at this point. I'm just going to say it again, spoiler. A lot of Battle Spirits Saga is really like, where do I start with? Like, what is my setup looking like? Which in this case, it would be things like Dragonaga Assassin and obviously like your Purple Smoke Valley for early reduction. And what is my end game plan? And for this list, obviously, it is Bishop and Cursed Dragon. And again, spoiler here, more Dark King Snake, which is really interesting because I remember how awful he called this card. So I'm really shocked to see 2 copies of it in here. Probably just came around on it because I remember him saying that it should be 0. But obviously, again, I think 1 to 2 is where you want to be anyways. It's just a very good card at what it wants to be doing. So he gets his spot. And then obviously, if you have Rotting Swamp, that's like another layer of strategy that you can build into your deck because you can just then bounce Dark King Snake every turn and keep getting to use its replay effect if the board is set up for that. So it's a very strong effect. And then obviously things like Deadly Balance, Burning Forest, Absolute Ice Shields. These are just all staples that we expect to see out of a lot of purple style of decks. So again, not terribly surprising. I think if you are going to these launch events, especially Vegas or other ones, and if you want a purple deck to test against, honestly, either one of these are fine. Your early game and your late game are going to be very similar. Your mid game is really up to you for flexibility. Dark Knight Mordred, I think, is one of the best things that you can be doing just for how strong of an effect it is. But obviously, there is some more flexibility with the other spirits that you can kind of mix in. And then, of course, with your spells or magic cards, it's going to start with like 4 Absolute Ice Shields, 2 Burning Forces, right? I think that we are in a space, and I've talked about this actually as recent as the Shadow Drain video, that more and more people are just going to be going to 4 copies of Netherworld Depths. And you see it right here, 4 copies of Netherworld Depths. The card is really just that good and forces your opponent to have an answer, because often what's going to happen, you're going to play Netherworld Depths, get a couple cards off of it, and then they're going to Burning Forest, or heaven forbid, you get a second one, and now you just have a million cards in your hand, and you have some number of core theft that you can just discard stuff for free, or you draw into your Beldegors, right? Discard 3 Beldegors for free and kill something. That's going to feel really, really good. So the card advantage that you're going to get out of that is just going to help you run away with so many games. So I think that's probably also why we see the 3rd Burning Force here, and even a 4th in the sideboard. It is really just a must-kill target in a lot of different strategies. Now, if you're playing yellow, I've actually milled out a few people because they overplay their depths, and that's certainly one thing to consider as well. But I think most people, as you get into the later rounds, they're not going to mill themselves out off of depths, or at least I hope not. But it is, to my surprise, it was a win condition that I had found in a couple of testing matchups. Interesting here is the 4-star Blessed Draw, just really hating on yellow and anything with when summon effects, just more card draw, makes sense. Dream Bomb, good universal card, can surprise a lot of people when you're trying to swing for the last point of damage. Gets Maduke out of the way, and then Algavale. It's Algavale, right? It's just a staple card. So again, I think a lot of the purple decks that we're going to see between now and then leading all the way to Vegas, they're going to have very similar packages within them because it's just very strong at what purple wants to be doing. And you know, things like Dark Bishop, things like Cursed Dragon, a lot of these are just going to continue to see play more and more because it is just a very strong combo in nature. And then the rest of the deck is kind of arguably fills out itself, but again, does offer some flexibility in what players can do. Moving on from there, we do have another color finally popping in here, which is going to be from Kai's Nova list, right? So this is basically star of the show. We've done a video on this deck list as well. Very, very similar breakdown. Just obviously red good stuff into a Nova late game, trying to make sure you delete your opponent's board. Healing up to 5 is very, very strong. And then, of course, having access to 4 Nebula Dragon Andromeda main deck, because you can help build up or blow up those depths and also build up to a Nova, because it is a 6-drop, right? Gives you a lot of flexibility in that card. And as we've shown and gameplay videos on the channel a couple times, right? There's just some turns where Prim would just be like, hey, I'm going to Big Bang Energy. That's 2 nice Nexuses you have there. And let me just Andromeda and ruin your whole day. So that's still a very good play, it turns out. And then obviously Volcanic Canyon helps you churn through your deck, find the Nova quicker, and Scorch Battlefields, excuse me. Great for card draw, great for getting Nova up to 13 or 14, which can be very relevant against the white decks. And kind of an interesting point, right? There's going to be some matchups that I think a lot of people aren't, not necessarily not ready for, but haven't played enough to know how it's going to go. But especially against Enterprise and Suppression, right? You need to get up to 15 or 16K, which can be very, very difficult for red decks if you're not playing heavily into like Scorch Battlefield or some Canyons. But again, the downside of Canyon is that now you're drawing out your deck and you're going to be finding yourself in a spot where it's like, cool, I have triple Canyon on board, 12 cards left in deck. I have to win very, very quickly or I'm just going to deck myself out. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the white decks kind of come back into the focus and be more of these defensive builds that can really just kind of cheat some games, because either with Elk or with Suppression and Enterprise and then Absolute Ice Shield, like you can just end the turn after 1 attack. And so, again, otherwise, overall, I think this is kind of what we're going to expect to see from a lot of Nova decks. I think it is very strong. Again, the Blazing Board tech, love to see it. Getting back extra Novas or even getting back an extra Andromeda in some cases can be really, really good. Horn Grizzly just from an early confront drop, and also from a suicide confronter, right? So like your opponent has a big threat that they're trying to block with, like I guess Enterprise is a bad example because they can just block then recover it, right? But let's say it's Elk. You don't want your Nova to get blocked by Elk because they might have a suppression or something else. So you have these low-cost confronters. They can go and say, hey, you guys can go ahead and confront this first, and then my Nova can swing uncontested. Now, again, if they have armor red, you're not going to get the 10k ping effect, which can be really bad for you, obviously, for very obvious reasons. But you can still get through a point of damage that way. And that's why I really like playing the early confront package, because later on in the game, you can just go, okay, confront Nova, and suddenly you're able to clear up the board, let that Nova swing through for a damage, and then unless they have something to immediately answer on the next turn, generally that second Nova swing is going to get you the value that you need to help close out a game. Sideboarding options here. 2 more Burning Force. Again, a lot of Nebulas, or a lot of Netherworld depths. The Nebula Andromeda can only go so far for you because there are sometimes you just have to blow up a 3k on the board, so more Burning Force is great. Leon, man, this is a card that I think just needs to be in more sideboards. It is an absolute hammering of a silver bullet, does a lot. Obviously, if you're playing the Rex deck, you can just play 2 main, by the way. And by the way, that video is still coming. You'll see the list tomorrow, or Saturday, hopefully. But it's very, very good at what it wants to be doing. Nebula Dragon just trying to sneak in some, your opponent goes down to 2 life with Absolute Ice Shield. Nebula Dragon then always forcing lethal when you have a Soul Core on it. And then Depths and Counter Sword for the, card advantage is good, and Counter Sword for the Nova sideboard tech, which is good, but it is certainly not enough, as I've been finding out very first-handedly. Counter Sword is not enough to counter Nova at the end of the day. You have to be very ahead on board and kind of, hopefully have already ran through their Absolute Ice Shields to have Counter Sword mean anything, but it's still a very, very good card to run and will catch some of your opponents. And then lastly, we do have a yellow deck with Symphonis, and this one's interesting. So I've also mentioned this in kind of a previous video, but one of the interesting things with yellow right now in set 1, kind of how it's designed, right, is you have Penton, you have Friesatol, you have Caladrius. And, like, those are fine for a lot. Like, those 3 cards can just be put anywhere, it feels like, a lot of the time. And honestly, they quite literally showcase that here, where it's, hey, I want to have the early 2-drop stuff that I can do, but then why not have a Michaela at the top end? Like, I don't need a lot of luster targets, right? A single luster card in this list, which is, in my opinion, you got to play Shin. If you're going to play a 1 of luster, just play Shin. Getting 2 lusters off 1 card is insanely strong. It's the best card in the luster deck. But, there's still a lot of things you can do here with early reductions. Exhaust Nexus is an absolute insane card. So you love to see it. And this is really interesting what they were able to put together because, you know, if your opponent shows you Michaela game 1, you're probably going to sideboard very differently. And then they just have the rest of the 2-cost package in their sideboard with Sword Angel, Prince Pendant, and God Beast Behemoth. So this one's pretty cheeky. I really do like it. I like the idea of like having this very heavy Magic game 1 because a lot of hands you'll just have like Pendant and Caladrius, right? Doing a lot of early game control for you. Then show the Michaela, which is going to reveal, spoiler, probably a lot more Magic or things like Great Bow and Pentant Chick. And your opponent's going to have no idea what's coming in game 2. So Michaela, I think, is a card that, yes, if you want to just play it for this free Magic value spam spirit, you certainly can. And obviously, Symphonis did a great job going 3-0 with this to showcase that. But it is something that as we get more Magic cards and as we get more value and luster, it's a card that is going to just really shine. And again, I personally would not be surprised if it's one of the first cards that we get limited to 1. Because both the other versions of Michaela have been limited to 1 or banned. Spoiler, this one is a bit more balanced in what it wants to be doing since it can't be used in main phase, but it's still very, very good. And you know, some turns just getting to cast like 20 plus, you know, cores worth of Magic and just delete your opponent's board feels very, very good. So I love this list. I love the flexibility and kind of the haha gotcha that it can do quite well. Because again, Pentant and Caladrius and Blessed Cathedral is just a starting point that so many decks in yellow can use, because then again, Drowsy and Angelic Pressure can get a lot of value for you. That as we get set 2, I think this is going to be a really good showcase to say, hey, there's going to be a new yellow key spirit that we can capitalize on. Probably is going to be some aggressive spirit in nature, but there's still this very good Magic core that we can utilize and surprise some people with. So really do like this list. Very curious to see where it goes, and I will expect a lot more yellow to appear post-launch events. And then the last list I want to give a shout out to, this was from Eternals tournament, I believe, in one of the decks that went either undefeated or made top or what have you. But I wanted to just say that we actually sleeved this up, Prim myself. And man, this deck is kind of annoying. Like, it does some stuff, I got to tell you. So Elephant is an absolute beating, and you're going to see this in the video. So I like that more people have been sticking to it and refining it more and more and more. And Buffalong Bill bouncing everything, it feels like, is certainly something to look forward to as well. And then Mecha Wing Duck giving you the extra core ramp. So we're almost there. I think it might take a couple more like big events to shake something out and to get some more testing and refinement into white. And I think you're probably going to end up splashing a few more cards in this outside of white. But Elephant Control is coming. It's I was very surprised with where this was. Is kind of I don't want to call it a first draft because obviously whoever worked on it has been doing a lot of work to get to this point. But from what we tested as kind of like the starting point, right? So I'm just going to call it Elephant 1.0. Yeah, I was pretty impressed with it. I'm really curious to see where else this goes because Elephant is going to surprise a lot of people. And if you get at all on the back foot and they have an Elephant on the board, you're probably losing because it's just a 10K that is very hard to deal with and not just give your opponent a lot of value for killing him. Then obviously we have like the 1 of Turbo Rex, the 2 of Elk, right? The 2 of Mothership. There's some card combinations in there that, you know, are probably just in there to give you a flexible option, but I would like to see these a bit more refined in some of the card quantities. But again, that's kind of a future build, future discussion to look into. And then lastly is kind of, this will be the last meta recap discussion, what have you, that we'll do until post launch events. Because just with timing and some other stuff that's going on, I just won't have time. So ultimately, the 3 cards kind of shaping things very early on. Netherworld Depths, we've kind of already talked about. You see a lot of Burning Forest, a lot of value at Andromeda, just getting to draw a lot of cards for your opponent attacking and blocking, right? Like, it prevents your opponent from wanting to play the game. Obviously, if you're in purple, you get to play this for 3, and it feels a lot better than some of the other decks that are playing it for the full 6. But truthfully, it's good enough that you're probably just paying 6 for it, and it is what it is. So it's a card that a lot of sideboards or game strategies overall, or game deck strategies overall, are going to have to really care about and evaluate what they're doing about this, because that card advantage will kill you over time. And it hasn't made a lot of a ground-shattering lists in the kind of these early first 2 weeks of events that we've seen. But Nova is still a very good card, right? It's going to heal you up to 5. It's going to blow up a board. It obviously is like the thing that kills yellow a lot of the time. And while it hasn't made up as much as I thought it would in the first early pie charts, this is still a card that a lot of players are going to have to respect and have a game plan for, like the counter swords, like the dream bombs, like armor red cards on the sideboard that I'm sure will develop more over time. And we're going to see a few changes in lists going to the launch event and then post-launch event, because Nova is just a very good card. And at the end of the day, a lot of people love red. If you're getting the demo decks, this is a very easy deck to kind of upgrade into. So I think just by virtue of the demo decks, we're going to see a lot more Nova early on in the meta, at least at the local level, because it's good. It is a good deck at the end of the day, and it is cheap for people to buy singles. So from an entry point into like a competitive list that we can expect, Nova for sure is going to be up there. And then last but not least, Absolute Ice Shield. I feel like I just have to mention this one because I've talked about it in a lot of videos. Obviously, most decks are going to be running 4 of because it just shuts down some aggressive strategies. But I wanted to call this one out in particular because I think it is a lot of players are warping their perception of the meta around this card and that aggro can't exist, period. And that couldn't be further from the truth at the end of the day. Absolute Ice Shield is, yes, a card that's going to help you live and stop a turn, but it requires you to have some sort of key follow-up or you're just still dead to whatever they're doing on board. So I think as more people test and kind of this early perception of Absolute Ice Shield stops everything from this category that I'm going to overgeneralize into aggro from existing, right? That's not completely true. So I think as the meta develops and as we see more of these lists shake out, we will see some other lists appear, like maybe a very low to the ground red and yellow list that are going to catch a couple people by surprise. Because again, Absolute Ice Shield can buy you a turn, but you kind of have to do more than that at the end of the day to win. So I think from, again, an early perception standpoint, Absolute Ice Shield is definitely warping the meta, and it's very, very good. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, that's why a lot of lists play it as a 4 of, or every list plays it as a 4 of, right? But in terms of where it is at in the early meta influence, I think it's doing a little bit more heavy lifting than what it should. But again, obviously, I've said this a ton of times. I'm going to continue to say it. If you can buy Absolute Ice Shields for under $10, just probably buy 4 and just sit on them. If you're someone like me who hates shuffling cards between decks, even if they're in the same sleeve, I'm probably going to end up with like 12 of these. But because it has 3 different printings in set 1, I can't imagine that's going to be, that bad. And last but not least, please, I've mentioned a lot up to this point, but I have to give a huge shout out to Espira and everything that they're doing for the community and running these and organizing these events, because it does take a lot of time on Tabletop Simulator, hosting the event, running the event, obviously putting the images together post the event, doing their own video content and whatnot. So if you haven't already, please make sure to go follow Espira on Twitter. That is the best way to get these updates. And then again, in the future, I'm sure they're going to be doing very similar like Monday meta reports like I'm going to be doing, where it's just like hey, let's see everything that topped from as many store events that we can get data on, and let's talk about it. So again, this will probably be the last like meta video, it's not Monday, but meta recap video until after the launch event. But obviously, Espira will be working on more tournaments coming out of their own events that you can look forward to and have more deck list recaps and kind of what are people playing leading up to the launch events, because it's a small sample size, but I think that will definitely influence some players in terms of what they're going to play in Vegas or other launch events, right? Because, yeah, purple's good, and I think these are all pretty solid lists, but I think that the people who have been testing and kind of refine their sideboarding and refine kind of their deck strategies will have a bit better of a focus going forward in terms of what they actually want to build and play and do well with. So with that, my friends, I will have the Gigano Rex deck posted soon, I promise. I just have to edit it, so hopefully it'll be up Saturday, because tonight I'm going to go demo it another locals, and also I'm going to be play testing with a friend who's going to Vegas, because he's playing a white and purple deck, and it's a very good list from what I could tell. So obviously I'm not going to spoil their list or anything, but I do want to get some reps against it, and then tomorrow, hopefully I'll have time to do some editing and whatnot. So with that, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll catch you in the next Battle Spirits Saga video. Cheers.